Let's start with the honest truth. Why do people get auto-rejected, ghosted, or never hear anything back after applying to a big tech position?
There are a ton of something called knockout questions that are part of the application process.
Should people be DMing recruiters on LinkedIn and emailing them?
Yeah, my personal opinion is...
Do you think networking and getting referrals is worth the time and effort?
Very good question. I would say...
Today, I'm talking with Aman Wang, a senior technical recruiter at Amazon. Aman has reviewed over 50,000 software engineer resumes and rejected 90 to 95% of them. She's administered thousands of online assessments and recruited dozens of people at Amazon. I asked her why so many people get ghosted in the software engineering hiring process, what you can do to stand out if you're looking to get a role at a big tech company like Amazon, and so much more. So stick around, because this is going to change your perspective forever on recruiting and landing a job offer in tech. Now, the first thing I asked Aman is, what actually happens behind the scenes when you apply to a job at a massive tech company like Amazon, and whether there's something people do to get instantly rejected right at the start of the process. Here's what she had to say. One of the most painful things students go through is applying to hundreds of jobs and never hearing anything back. Let's start with the honest truth. Why do people get auto-rejected, ghosted, or never hear anything back after applying to a big tech position?
Number one thing that I can tell you is there are a ton of something called knockout questions that are part of the application process. Let me give you more examples. Let's say it's for an early careers position and they're only looking at candidates with a graduation date of May of 2025 until a certain date. And so they can put these graduation dates in place where students are applying for these roles and they're automatically rejected. Another reason could be any sponsorships, right? Any of those hard requirements that are put in place for a particular role, and students didn't meet that. Another very critical piece is that if the student had previously been interviewed for a particular role, right, and they didn't do very well, there's something called a cool-off period, right? So basically, for a certain period of time, you're not being considered for any position within the company.
Got it. What's the typical cool-off period for a company like Amazon or any of the big tech companies in general?
Yeah, it depends too. So typically, a minimum would be 6 months. Could be a year, it could be 2 years.
Got it.
And it could really be depending on what the hiring team decides to do. And also, if you're applying for a different role that what you had previously interviewed for in a different job category, maybe the feedbacks wasn't as harmful.
Got it.
Right.
Interesting. So someone can apply for a role, do the interview, not do well, and then essentially be blacklisted from the company for a lot of different ways for up to 2 years at that point.
Or even more, yeah.
Or even more than 2 years.
Yeah, because it stays there
Wow.
forever. Yeah.
That's crazy. So kind of summarizing what you said, the first point was a lot of people just have like logistical things that don't work. Their graduation date is off. For immigration reasons, it's just not going to match the company.
Right.
Or it's just something based on the ATS you mentioned. So like, tell me more about how the ATS just auto-rejects someone.
Let's just say, for example, you are applying for a position in a software engineering role. But then you decided to apply for a system engineer role or a product manager role. Recruiters are going to look at these profiles and just like raise their eyebrow and feel like, what does this person want to do, right? And to make it even more complicated, some positions are only open to certain geographical locations. As you know, return to office is really a thing now, right? Like we're no longer working hybrid or working remotely. If you're applying to positions like here on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, like, right, like where do you really want to be is another thing, especially on your resume. We can see where you went to school, where's home, like where you have built a community already. That's another thing with internships, like geographical locations could really play a big piece into the consideration process.
Something we've talked about in the past is the optimal number of roles to apply to at a company, especially at a company like Amazon or any kind of big tech company. You'll often see, I think Amazon specifically, they just have a ton of roles open. when I was applying for roles at Amazon
Yeah.
back in the day, I remember applying to like other countries. I would like apply to some Amazon role in like Europe for some reason.
Yeah.
So I just feel like people don't really know, why are there so many roles open for software engineers? Why are there all these different locations? Maybe there's like slightly adjacent ones, like there's like an Android app developer for Amazon, or like an iOS app developer position, or like a web developer position. It's like all these different kind of positions, hundreds of them. So what's the optimal strategy for, one, how many positions max should you apply to? How do you decide which ones to go for? Is there like a specific location you should go for? Tell me all about like, how do you optimize which positions you apply to at a big tech company like Amazon?
Very good question. I would say the magic number is no more than 2. So you should be in the system for no more than 2 positions to be under consideration at the same time. One thing to be very certain is making sure that when you're applying to these roles, you are reviewing through the basic qualifications for the position. So if you do not meet the basic qualifications, you will likely be rejected.
So right away, we've got some amazing information here about what you can do to better position yourself when applying for a job at a company like Amazon. Now, the biggest takeaway here is that every part of the initial application is important, and you need to pay very close attention to knockout questions like location preference, visa sponsorship, and even the number of roles you apply to. These are all factors in whether you move past that initial screen and on to the next round. This is even more important when you add in the idea of a cool-off period where these companies will auto-reject you from between 6 months to up to 2 years. Imagine applying to one too many positions at a company and you're screwed for 2 years. Look, applying to jobs has always been a numbers game, but this kind of information reinforces the importance of being strategic when applying to roles at a company. If you're just spraying and praying and applying to 200 roles at Amazon, you're essentially guaranteeing that you're going to be on the blacklist. This brings me to the next topic Aman and I talked about, and that's resumes. We discussed the biggest mistakes and red flags she's seen as a senior technical recruiter at Amazon, and the age-old question of whether or not you should apply to a job if you don't meet the requirements. Let's find out what she had to say. Let's talk resumes.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest mistakes or resume red flags that you've seen in people's resumes? What are the biggest issues that they have on there that causes them not only to be rejected or even auto-rejected?
Wow. The biggest red flag of resumes is being very unclear and inconsistent. Okay. So if we're seeing some sort of inconsistency in your LinkedIn or on your resume, and we're going back and forth and we're like, this doesn't make sense, or dates aren't aligned, I think that's the biggest red flag, because that's misrepresentation of information. And that's a huge red flag to just be able to disposition you for that particular reason.
I feel like that's something most people, including me, honestly, didn't even realize was so important. Sure, for college applications, everyone knows, okay, you need to be involved in like 10 different clubs, you need to have X, Y, and Z leadership. But I think when people were looking at tech and job applications, and I've told people this before, I was like, oh, none of that stuff matters. Like, just get like a bunch of different internships, just, have better projects and skills. But what it sounds like you're saying is that it actually does make a difference to be on the board of even like a non-technical organization at your school, to be involved in like a fraternity or like a sorority and stuff like that. It seems to actually make a difference at that point. So going back to something you mentioned about basic qualifications, I hear it 2 ways. I mean, we're saying here, you probably shouldn't apply for something that you don't meet the basic qualifications for. But then some companies or people will say, hey, even if you don't meet the qualifications, just apply and see what happens. What's your stance on that? Do you think like specifically it's just not worth applying if you don't have the basic qualifications, or should you just shoot your shot and see what happens?
I think you need to have the basic qualifications. Yeah, definitely don't wing it. Right. Don't just hope for the best. And unless you have a very good referral, right? You've got a leader that's going to vouch for you. You've gone into an actual event. You've networked. You've got, you got a good name that's going to put in a good word for you. Yes. Does networking work? Absolutely. Right. We all know it works. But if you're just going through the standard process, absolutely, you need to meet those basic qualifications. And especially for early careers, you need to pay very close attention to the graduation date, to what major they're looking for. There's a lot of AI jobs now that are looking for double majors, okay? They're specifically looking for double majors in computer science and maybe plus mathematics. Pay very close attention. They are looking for that person. with those exact skill set matches. There's some job descriptions that's going to tell you we prefer to have this person coming from this particular industry experience. That's what they're going to prefer. They're going to strategize and prioritize on reviewing those resumes and getting those candidates into the phone screen process that meets those qualifications.
All right, so right off the bat, what did we learn from this? First of all, do not lie on your resume. Just don't do it. It's okay to embellish or exaggerate a bit, but if your employment dates or job title don't line up with what's on your LinkedIn or background check, companies will find out and they will blacklist you. Something else that stuck out to me is the importance of extracurriculars like clubs or even being on the board of an organization at your school. I think a lot of us growing up knew that for college applications, but I had no idea that extracurricular activities as a student actually matter for getting a job. But if you think about it though, it makes complete sense. Communication is incredibly important, and soft skills are going to become even more vital as the tech industry moves further away from writing code by hand. Now let's talk about those basic requirements and whether you should apply to a job you don't meet the qualifications for. Personally, I still think it varies from company to company, but like Aman said, it's safe to say that you really do need to check off most, if not all of the boxes in the basic requirements section, unless you have an amazing referral. One of my core beliefs in life is that referrals are one of the most powerful levers you can use to land a software engineering job. So let's hear exactly what Aman has to say about that, along with what she has to say about cold emailing and DMing recruiters on LinkedIn, as well as how to find the right recruiter to talk to. Let's take a look. Let's talk DMing recruiters on LinkedIn and cold emailing recruiters.
Sure.
Useful, not useful, overrated, underrated. Should people be DMing recruiters on LinkedIn and emailing them?
Yeah, my personal opinion is go for it. You have nothing to lose. Why not? If the recruiter sees a value in your experience and who you are and what you can offer, they will respond. If you know the recruiter is recruiting for a specific role, tell them about the role, link the role, and tell them exactly what your qualifications are in relation to this particular position they're recruiting for.
So based on that, it sounds like the key is to find the right recruiter. So how do you, one, find the right recruiter for the role that you're going for? And two, how do you identify, how do you properly write a great message and just identify that that is the right person to contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that are in college, okay, you absolutely need to utilize your university career resources. Your director of career services within your university, or for those that goes larger, public universities, and then you have different departments, right? Or colleges of engineering, right? Department of computer science, right? Things like that. So you want to make sure that you are connected with those university contacts.
So it sounds like, one, the level of the person makes a big difference. The higher up at these big tech companies, a referral coming from that person is actually just marked or treated very differently compared to just a referral from anyone. And also, you want to really sell yourself to them because you want them to make more of an effort to actually find the hiring manager, find the recruiter, connect you with them, really sell your resume and your application to them as well. So it sounds like that makes a difference. Do you think networking and getting referrals is worth the time and effort? I mean, it is difficult, but you think it makes a difference?
It's very difficult, but it's so rewarding. Yeah, it is it's going to make your life so much easier. It's going to capture that opportunity that you just never think that you had.
Yeah, we work with students, and as soon as we get them on referrals, we've had students get 15, 20 referrals over a 2-month period, and they just kind of magically get a job. Yep. Usually you don't see people who have 20, 30 referrals on their register and they're like, I couldn't even get an internship.
Yeah.
Almost all the time, if they're able to get referrals, they get a job.
Yep.
So it's a pretty great indicator there based on what I've seen at least.
Yep, 100%. Referrals, networking is the way to go. And also another thing to remember is university talent acquisition, the top funnel of applicants. That's how they source candidates, is through events. So attending events is going to make your search process so much easier.
So based on what I've seen so far, usually another big aspect, interaction between the recruiter and the applicant, is that recruiter screen. A lot of people will get 10-minute, 15-minute recruiter screens. I treat them as behavioral interviews. I think they're very important. You should prepare for a recruiter screen, even though it's very short compared to a longer behavioral interview. So talk to me, what happens with the recruiter screen? What are they looking for? And what are the biggest mistakes people make in those recruiter screens?
not knowing what you want is the biggest mistake in those recruiter screens. So you have to have a very clear picture of what positions you're looking for, like know what it is, the role that you are pursuing. So it makes it very difficult. Like I said, if you were applying, like active in the system for like 10 different jobs, it's very difficult for the recruiter to be talking to you and really figure that out. So during the recruiter phone screen, there's a lot of housekeeping questions recruiter ask. It's pretty much like going down the list, making sure that this is the role that is a fit for you.
So the recruiter gets essentially like a positive in their direction if the candidate is given an offer and the offer is accepted. That's like the ideal situation for the recruiter. They want to pick someone who ends up getting the offer and accepting it. So is the recruiter on your side?
Yes, absolutely. The recruiter is always on your side. So the recruiter is your biggest advocate. Yes, for you to get the job.
Now, a lot of you might be surprised about what you just heard. It turns out that yes, the recruiter is 100% on your side. They want you to get hired because that's what they get paid to do. And that's even more so the case for Aman, who's actually one of our high-level coaches in our software engineering accelerator program. Look, the market is tough right now, and in order to land an amazing, high-paying job in tech at a company like Amazon, you're going to need every possible advantage in your corner. Because even if you work in your resume, position yourself well, and reach out to recruiters on your own, it still might not be enough. And that's why I launched a program called the Software Engineering Accelerator. I brought together a team of FANG-level recruiters and software engineers from big tech companies to look at your resume and maximize your chances of getting an offer. In other words, if you join the program, Aman will literally help you rewrite your resume dozens of times as a senior recruiter at Amazon. We also have a recruiter at Bloomberg with over a decade of experience and engineers from companies like Amazon, Meta, and Google that will help you with the technical side of things. And we've already gotten students into companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Capital One, Tesla, Salesforce, and pretty much every big tech company under the sun. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with me and Aman to actually achieve this goal, check out the top link in the description. Now let's get back to the video. Look, I know I've said this a lot, but even though technical skills matter, all roads lead to networking. I cannot stress this enough. Nothing will get you results faster than focusing on maximizing your network. Let's hear what Aman has to say about the power of networking and getting the most out of your available resources. Let's keep talking campus. I think you mentioned here how your University Career Services is honestly your best friend when it comes to finding the right recruiter. What are some other overlooked or underrated campus resources or clubs or events or organizations that people don't take advantage of that could massively boost their chance of getting a job in tech?
Yeah, 100%. Those diversity student organizations or professional organizations, I just kind of give you a few, like Women in Business, for example, right? NSBE, or National Society of Black Engineers, right? So there's also Ascend for the Pan Americans, Asian Americans, API Group. There are a ton of these organizations that students can take a part in, to go to their actual events and be able to meet professionals from all different industries. And that's really going to make an impact in the success of the job search process. There's different resource groups that's out there to help applicants. Even within Amazon, there's resource groups there that are there to help candidates pass OAs. There is. So there's a group of employees at the company that's willing to help you pass the OAs.
Really? I didn't even know this.
Yes.
There are employees at Amazon who are there to help people pass.
Group. Yes, part of a resource group. Yes.
So how do you find those people? Is it in the email? Is it just...
So recruiters would know. So recruiters are typically given those information and they can pass them on to the candidates. Yeah.
So you should ask your recruiter basically every time, like, what are there any resources or advice they have for working on the OA? So if someone is completely new to this whole game, they don't have a lot of experience, they actually have no internships on their resume, they're a junior in college and they want to get that first software engineering internship. What are the 2 or 3 things you suggest they do to maximize their odds of actually getting that first internship, foot in the door, early careers-wise, in the world of big tech?
Utilize your university career services and all of your university resources to the maximum. You pay for them, so utilize them. Secondly, get involved in a diverse student organization And on top of that, be involved in a professional organization that is related to your, let's say you're in electrical engineering. Well, IEEE, we all know there's different chapters on campus. Get involved. Go to their events. There are speakers. There are consortiums. Like, there are a lot of these things happening that are led by professionals, right? That are typically sometimes alums, but they're led by these company leaders that are there speaking to you. And those are like the most precious, opportunities that you literally are just like letting it swing, kind of go by without capturing them. So be active on campus.
Yvonne is a goldmine of advice, and honestly, by working with her to coach hundreds of our students to getting jobs in tech, I've learned a million times more than anything I've done on my own. Getting the chance to actually sit down and talk to someone on the other side of the recruiting process has been incredible. If you're looking to get Yvonne and I, as well as other recruiters at big tech companies to rewrite your resume for you, click the link at the top of the description and apply to join the Software Engineering Accelerator. And if you're interested in learning more about the exact referral strategy I use to get hundreds of referrals at FANG level companies, click the link over here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.